Mm. Hey, okay, so it's been a while since I made a video, a couple of weeks, but I have to tell you what's happened in this past like 3.5 weeks because I've been going insane. You people have to know about this, okay? I have done probably, I don't know, at least 200 hours of research on this now since this happened. Okay, I've been up nights learning as much as I possibly could learn about this. And I thought that it might actually be skewing me the past couple of weeks, but honestly, it hasn't. So let me tell you what happened. And you cannot miss this diagnosis. I'm not kidding you. Think about this because it is just so crazy that this has happened to me over the past 3 weeks. All right. So this started, it has to be at least 3.5 weeks ago. I got a new patient. This new patient came to me. We usually do like the establishing care visit, and then we schedule them to follow up with a physical after they get their labs and all of that stuff, usually a week later. So he comes into me and he tells me his story, and it's actually kind of sad because every time he told me, he ended up telling me this later, and I feel like really sad. He said that every time he would go to a new doctor, he would really hope that this time would be the time that somebody could help him. Okay, so this is like really sad. This guy is not old, 40s. He told me that he has been itching for the past 7 months to the point where he could not even function anymore. It has changed his personality. It's caused problems in his marriage. He's been to two of the #1 dermatologists in the state and the top allergist in the state, and he has been told that they can't find anything wrong with him, that he's fine. They give him a topical steroid cream and told him to take Zyrtec. So this poor guy had been taking like, I don't know, he said at the most he was taking like 6 or 7 Zyrtec a day trying to get rid of the itch. He also told me that the itch was so, like, he couldn't get to it. It was frustrating that the itch was just so deep that he didn't feel like he could scratch to get to it, that he had to basically like hit himself to try and itch this or to just to get rid of it. So, I'm like, okay, I'm listening to this, and he's like, oh, and by the way, I'm moving PCPs, and my last PCP, finally drew labs on me not too long ago, and it turns out that I have Lyme disease. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, well, the itch could be from that because, sometimes you get like this creepy crawling like crazy all over the body itch when you have Lyme disease. And he had had Lyme disease before, but he was like, it wasn't like this. I had like the aches and pains in my neck when I had it before. So this isn't the same. And he told me that he had been on doxycycline for 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, well, it could be neuropathic itch. Let me give you some gabapentin for that because you can, and see how it goes. Then he starts to tell me this story, like he's got kids and he has a baby, and she's about 18 months old. But, he's just been miserable because he's been up every single night for the past 7 months. He hasn't slept. Not only because he's itching like crazy, but because his 18-month-old baby for the past, 6 or 7 months also has been like a newborn again, that she's waking up every single hour. She's miserable. She just wakes up in the middle of the night screaming and crying for no reason. So, he's just at his wit's end. So I'm like, okay, she's seen her pediatrician. She also went to a dermatologist because she had been itching at herself. Her pediatrician and her dermatologist said that she just had hand, foot, and mouth disease, and that it had gotten out of hand. So they also, and eczema. So they also gave her a topical steroid and sent her on her way too. And it was never kind of looked at again. So throughout like this whole 7 months, he had been seeing his regular doctor. He saw those two specialists in dermatology. He saw the allergist. And okay, he has Lyme disease. So, and then he sees me, and I'm like, okay. And I'm listening to what these other people have diagnosed him with, and kind of like, because it wasn't the full physical, I kind of just went off of what he was telling me. And, was trying to help the guy out. All right, so lesson learned right there, number one. Always do your own assessment, right? So we say, like, don't go off your past stuff, don't go off other people's stuff. You do from what you see. All right, so but because it was, the meet and greet and I wasn't going crazy, I was like, all right, whatever. Let me just help this guy with his itch because I'm going to see him in less than a week anyway. So anyway, this happened like this was midweek, and it was driving me crazy. Like the story, I was like researching, kind of like you do, like when you have time, and it just didn't add up. He told me that he didn't have a rash, that every now and then he would get like this little eczema spot, like either under his arm, or he would, itch on his stomach, extra, more than the whole body itch, these things like that. But then like he would like put cream on and like it would go away. And then I started thinking about his baby and how this happened at the same time. And I was like, something is not right. It doesn't make sense. And so I start doing more research. I'm thinking, like, what? This has to be something else. Well, I was going like sleepless for like 2 or 3 nights, and this happened on a Saturday. I had my computer, and I was like, this might be really weird, but I'm going to call this patient because it had dawned on me what I thought they might have. So I called him, and I was like, do you mind if I come over? And I think I know what's wrong with you. And as weird as this sounds, the community that I live in, like, this was totally okay. And this guy was like, oh my God, please, like, if you think you know what we have, please come over. Like, we would do anything. And I make house calls, so it's kind of not as weird, but I do the house calls. So anyway, he's like, please. And it just happens he lived like 0.3 miles from me. So it was even better. I go over, and the house is beautiful and it's clean, and he's got 2 beautiful children. The mother-in-law is there, and I'm like looking around, kind of assessing the home, and the little baby comes up to me, and she's just as cute as she can be, and I'm like, let me look at her. And I'm a huge nerd, so I have like this, that you see have in college, like a medical grade, like microscope. And I like to kind of do that kind of thing. And I'm like, do you mind if I do a little scraping? Because I think, she might have the same thing that you have. And he's like, really? Because like, everyone says that she just has eczema, and like, it's just, exacerbated. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. So I make a slide, with a little ink and all that stuff like that. And I get it and I put it in my case or whatever. And I'm being very careful about where I sit and what I do and what I touch. And I'm looking at her, and it makes total sense. Like, everything just pieced together. So this person works in education, is around children a lot, and she was adopted, and she had been in a daycare as well. So she had some impetigo on her feet, and it was just like perfect. So I diagnosed them with scabies. Now, you might think this is weird because they're like, oh, it wasn't a classic presentation. Like, the guy didn't have a rash. He didn't have the rash between his fingers. Like, blah, blah, blah. All these things that if you hadn't, if you just kind of were to hear the back of this, it would be like, oh, that doesn't make sense, whatever. But because he didn't break out in a rash, the classic rash, that's why this is so crazy. The baby had like on the back of her neck and her feet and on her arms, what they were calling eczema. And then she had the impetigo on her little cute baby feet. So sometimes scabies can actually turn into impetigo, especially on children. So that is what had happened to her. And the poor little baby had been like ripping her skin off because she was itching so bad. So I told them what I thought it was, and the entire family should be treated. And they were like totally grossed out and freaking out because, you know, when you hear scabies, people kind of like just kind of get all creeped out, which, you know, whatever. So I was like, yeah. So I immediately called on a prescription for the Prothambin 5% cream. But because he'd had it so long, I also gave him ivermectin. And that's an oral antiparasitic. So it's been 3.5 weeks. We're still treating this. He is improving immensely. He noticed after the first, I made him do actually 3 days, him and the baby and the family, 3 days straight of the cream. And after that, I was in contact with him every day. Like, I gave him my number because I felt so terrible for this family, what they had been through, which that's, you know, not normal practice, but I did because I knew this guy was like on edge. So turns out we're 3.5 weeks in, and I told him that the itching would come in waves, which because it does, and then it's funny because after he used the cream, he actually started to break out into the like classic textbook rash that you get when you have scabies. The baby had already had it, but it was misdiagnosed. So he starts getting this rash. It's busting out left and right. It's coming in waves. He feels like crap for a day, but then he feels amazing the next day, and he doesn't itch at all. And he's like, okay, I don't have to take, you know, my Zyrtec, blah, 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 whatever. Well, the guy is sleep deprived, so I did a couple of things for him. I ended up giving him some Ativan to take at night so he could sleep, because poor guy hadn't slept in 7 months, and that's not even exaggerating. I gave him the ivermectin, and we did the cream, and they're actually going to repeat the cream this weekend. But after 3.5 weeks, the entire family, the baby has been sleeping through the night since the second treatment of cream. It does come in waves. I also gave an antibiotic for the impetigo. The baby took that. Her feet are all healed up. The sores on the back of her neck are all healed up. She had just ripped open like nasty sores everywhere. They're all healed. I also gave a topical antibiotic for that. All healed. Baby happy, baby sleeping, baby eating, not scratching like crazy and ripping her skin off. However, and she's getting antihistamine throughout the day and at night before she goes to bed. However, it does come in waves, and there are days where they're both extra itchy and have to take an extra dose of either Zyrtec or Claritin or whatever. But that's completely normal. So anyway, that case. But let me tell you what has happened. That's not the crazy thing. That was a family of 4. They all had it. In 3 weeks, I have diagnosed 18 people with scabies that were all misdiagnosed. Okay, today I had another one, which is why I'm telling you. This is insane. I had another family come in, new patients. Again, the only reason